11. Vidyam cha yas.
Vidyam cha yash.
Tadvido vayam saha.
Tadvido bhayam saha.
Avidyaya mrityum tirtva.
Avidyaya mrityum tirtva.
Vidyaya amritam ashnute.
Vidyaya amritam ashnute. Okay, I'll try.
Yes.
Vidyam cha avidyam cha yash.
Vidyam cha yas.
Tad vedobhyam saha.
Tadvido vayam saha.
Avidyaya mrityum tirtva.
Avidyaya mrityum tirtva.
Vidyaya mritam ashnute.
Vidyaya amritam ashnute. Translation, please, Narendra.
Only one who can learn the process of knee science and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessing of immortality.
Mm. This is the goal, isn't it? That everyone wants immortality. We want to live forever. We don't want to die.
Yeah.
So whether we're a materialistic person or a spiritual person, but everyone wants to live forever. Of course, materialistic person has the hope that they can live forever in the material world. But actually, if we think about it a bit more, we realize that it's not possible to live forever in the material world. But we do through materialistic science, they're trying to find out ways that we can extend our lifespan. And actually, some scientists are working on, even 50 years ago when Prabhupada was present, working on like a pill that would make you live forever. And you just take the pill and of course that's completely ridiculous. It's never going to happen. It's against the laws of nature. But anyway, they're trying. And one foolish person named Walt Disney, which you probably heard of Walt Disney, he started the Disneyland. So he had a lot of faith in the scientists that they're promising that soon we're going to come up with this pill of immortality. So, but it wasn't yet fully developed. So, and it's still not 50 years later, but there was a technology which you could freeze the person's body, and that sort of almost stops all the decay and everything like that. But then it doesn't kill the person. I can't remember. There's a name for that when you like
Cryo something, cryo related. I think
cryogenics or
something like that.
cryogenics. Yeah, cryogenics. So they did it to him. He said, "I do this to me," and paid $1 million, paid $1 million, which is a lot going back then, $1 million to keep his body frozen. The idea was when the technology was complete, that they've got this pill, his idea was then thaw me out and then I'll take the pill and I'll live forever. Pretty well. And so that happened. He was frozen. And so what was the problem? The problem was that he had children and they couldn't collect the inheritance. Of course, he had a vast wealth, but technically the father wasn't dead. So you can only get the inheritance when the father's dead. So that created problems for the kids, that they couldn't get the money of the father while he was frozen. So the children got together, they paid the company that was freezing him, or keeping him frozen, they paid the company more than $1 million to turn it off. So basically they killed their father to get the money. So once again, back to the material world, it's very vicious. It's like a dog eat dog world, isn't it? There's the laws of nature are very strict. One living thing is food for another. The big subsist on the small, and the strong subsist on the weak, and one living thing's food for another. That's actually a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Sahastanam, no, was it Aparani? No. Ahastani. No. Sahastana. What is it? Hast. Because hasti means hands.
Oh, okay.
So it's saying that those that have no hands are food for those that have hands. Ahastani ahastanis hastanam. Yeah. So those that have no hands are food for those that have hands. Aparani chaduspatam. That those that have 4 legs, those that have no legs, means the plants, are food for those that have 4 legs.
Okay.
So those that have no legs, aparani, chadurpadam. So those that have no legs, the plants, are food for those that have 4 legs. And then falguni cha mahantam. Falguni means weak, subsisted on by mahantam, means the strong. So the weak are subsisted on by the strong. And jivasya jivanam. So one living thing is food for another living thing. So those are the law of material nature. Very strict. And the only way to get out of that, you're never gonna change that in the material world. The only way to escape that is you have to get out of here. You have to go to the spiritual world. So that's what's saying here in this verse, that we need to transcend the influence of repeated birth and death. So transcend means to go above. So we have to we have to leave the material world. We have to go above the material world. You can't stay within the material world and change the laws that operate in the material world. And that's what human society is trying to do. Some of the members is we're trying to change the laws of this material nature. But you can't do that. It's not possible, because material nature is not under our control. We're under the control of material nature, and we're also under the control of God. So we're always under control. Even if we go to the spiritual world, does that mean we're not going to be under control anymore?
No, we still will be under control, because part is controlled from the whole, I guess. I mean, that's...
Yeah, so still we'll be under the control of Krishna. See, here we're under the control of Maya, under the modes of material nature, the Trigunas, 3 modes. But there we're still under control, but under the direct control of Krishna. And he's our very loving friend, and or a child, or a lover, or so many relationships, rasas. One has different rasas there. But one is still under his control, and but that control is based on love. Whereas here, the control is based on punishment. So there's a big difference, punished through being forced in another body, birth, through old age, disease, death. And then you have the Adhyatmic, Adhidaivic, Adhibaltic kleshas, the 3-fold miseries like that. Like just in the South Island of New Zealand, they've just had big floods. And here is like drought, you know, so either it's too dry or too wet or, you know, so there's always something happening that means we can't be completely perfectly happy, you know, like that, always some pinprick is there. So Nilakanta Priya Mataji's joined us. Hare Krishna. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so let's get into the purport this week. We talked about the translation last week. So you want to start up with that?
Yeah. Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. But the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die, nor does anyone want to become old or diseased. The law of nature, however, does not allow anyone immunity from old age, disease, or death. Nor has the advancement of material knowledge solved these problems. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from cruel hands of old age, disease, and death.
Yeah. So Nilakanta Priya Mataji, just to let you know, we've just started reading the purport for Mantra 11. Mantra 11, the beginning of the purport, that's what we just read there, the first paragraph. So Prabhupada starts off there. Oh, you're welcome. Prabhupada starts off, since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. So what does that indicate? It's not a new thing that, you know, now we have modern science, we're trying to make ourselves live forever, immortal. No, even before so-called modern science was there, since the very beginning of the creation, since the very beginning, there have been persons that they want to live forever in the material world, you know, but it's not possible. No, it wasn't possible in the beginning of the material world. It's not possible in the middle of the material world, and it's not possible in the end of the material world. Of course, it's Bhagavatam gives very scientific understanding of not only the spiritual world but even the material world. Like, how long does the material world last for? Like this universe, it tells us that the lifespan of the material world is the life of Lord Brahma, who is the first being in the universe. So in the beginning of the material world, Lord Brahma came out of the lotus navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So his lifespan is the duration of the universe. And he lives for, I can't remember all the thousands part and the hundreds and so forth, but I do remember the trillions part. So just to give you an idea, 311 trillion years, plus so many million and so many thousand, so many hundred, whatever. That's human years, 311 trillion plus all the rest years. And that's how long the material lasts for. So we're about halfway through that. Oh, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question, is it? Or you're just going...
No, sorry, Prabhu, that was accidentally.
Oh.
I was like, wow.
That's okay, no problem, no problem. So now we're about halfway through Lord Brahma's life. About halfway through Lord Brahma's life. So you've got another 155 trillion to go. So for 155 trillion years, people have been trying to live forever here, and no one's managed to do it. No one's managed to do it. I mean, there are persons that have lived a very long life. Like I said, Lord Brahma, I mean, he lives for 311 trillion years. But at the end of that, he still has to die. So even though he has a long lifespan, but he has to die. I mean, there's other sages that live for, you know, a whole day of Lord Brahma and everything like that. So a day of Lord Brahma, just to give you an idea, is the Chatur Yuga, which is, if you put Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali together, that's 4.32 million years, Earth years. 4.32 million years. Times that by 1,000, that's a day of Lord Brahma.
Wow.
So there's some sages that they live for, like, you know, even many days of Lord Brahma. Even Even we know that Hanuman was present in Ram Lila in Treta Yuga, which was more than 2 million years ago. More than 2 million years ago, the Ramayana was there, Ram Lila. So, and Hanuman is still present. Vyasadeva, he compiled the Vedas 5,000 years ago. He is still present. He's still present in the Himalayas. He is waiting there. And so there's many great personalities. They live for a long time, but still, eventually, everyone has to die. Of course, those are special cases. It's not really an ordinary kind of death, because when they so-called die, they go straight back to the spiritual world. So the death of a devotee of the Lord is not an ordinary death. It's not you're dying, means you're transferred from one body into another body, like in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 13, very important, very famous verse, Dehena smanyatadehe komaram yovanam jaratata dehantra paptir diras tatranamuyati. So as the embodied soul is changing from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly is transferred into another body at the time of death. So it's not like that it's not that we're transferred to another material body for a pure devotee or an incarnation of the Lord. They leave this situation and they go straight back to the spiritual world. So different scenario there. But in materialistic people, they've always been trying to figure out how they can have eternal life, and why is that? I mean, why do we want eternal life? Why does a materialistic person want eternal life?
That's it.
I mean, it's like everyone does. Well, I mean, if it was just some people, okay, but it's like in the heart of everyone, we want to live forever. Why is that?
We want sense enjoyment, I guess. We want to be happy, I guess.
Yeah, that's there, which you could say is happiness through the body. But generally, we all want to be happy forever, whether it's through the body or through some other way, through the soul. We want to be happy, and we don't want it to come to an end. Nobody wants their happiness to come to an end. So why is that? Because actually we are eternal, and actually our nature is to be happy all the time. It's not our nature to suffer. That's why we're trying to avoid it. Why are we trying to avoid suffering? Because it's unnatural. Because the nature of the soul is to be full of love and full of happiness. And Deep has joined us. Very nice. Hare Krishna. So that's the nature of the soul. In Sanskrit, it's called Anandamaya Vyasat. I'm just going to shut the windows here because now there's a lot of noise coming from the rain outside.
Hare Krishna.
I don't know if it's going to make much difference, but anyway.
So sorry.
Anyway,
that
I'm very happy. This is very auspicious rain for us. It's been very dry for a long time. So yeah, this sacrifice we're doing of Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting about Krishna, is bringing auspiciousness here in the form of rain. So that's very good. We need that. And yeah, so we're saying, so why is it we're trying to live in the material world forever? We don't want to die, and we want to be happy, and we don't want the happiness to stop, because it's nothing, not just to do with our psychology or the body or anything like that. It's the desire of the soul. That's the nature of the soul and the desire of the soul, that we live forever. So therefore, it's a foreign concept. What do you mean? I have to die? What's that? We can't get our head around it, isn't it? Death, what happens, when we die? It's like, it's a very unnatural situation. And that's because we are eternal. So now we're stuck in this body that grows old and gets sick and dies, and we're feeling uncomfortable. And we don't want these things to happen. We don't want to grow old, we don't want to get sick, and we don't want to die. And that's because normally we don't experience any of those things. It's only because of contact with the material body, contact with the material world, that we have to go through these things. So it's like a bad dream, a nightmare for the soul to be put in these situations. But it really is just a dream, because actually we don't die. Actually we don't grow old. We're the eternal soul. But it's just like a dream. Just like in a dream, right? The dreaming person is, in the dream, is being eaten by a tiger, for example. Ah! In the dream. But actually, the person that's standing there awake in the room can see there's no tiger. There's no tiger. The person's not being eaten. But the person that's going through the dream is thinking that they're being gobbled up by the tiger, or you fell off a cliff or something like that. But actually you didn't. So in reality, the soul's not affected by any of these things. It's just due to material association, and we are falsely identifying. So it's said that the soul is falsely identifying itself with matter, and therefore through that association in our mind, in our identifying with the body, then we become affected. But actually we're not affected at all. The soul is not transformed or changed in any way by us being in the material world. If you read in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Achedyo yam adeyo yam akledya shosya eva cha. That's second chapter, text 20, I think. Achedyo means unchangeable. No, hang on. No, achedyo means cannot be cut. Cannot be cut by weapons or anything else. And adio means cannot be burnt. And then kaidyo. And then there's one that says cannot be drowned in water, cannot be withered dried out by the wind. And then it says Nitya, we're eternal. Sarvagata, present everywhere. That doesn't mean we are everywhere, but that means there's souls everywhere. There's souls in the earth, there's souls on the earth, there's souls, means under the ground and on top of the ground, and there's souls in the water and the air, there's souls in space. Wherever you go, there's souls everywhere. Nitya Sarvagata Stanur. Stanur means unchangeable. That's that one I was talking about. So we're not changed by our association with the material world. We're not going through miseries or whatever like that, but the soul is not changed by that in any way. And achalo yam sanatana. We're immovable. That's an interesting one. It seems like I'm moving, but actually the body is moving, but we're not moving. We're situated in a fixed position in the body, in the heart. The soul is situated in the heart, so the soul's not moving. It seems like we're moving, we're moving along, but actually the soul doesn't move. And the body is moving, but the soul is not moving like that. So some interesting characteristics Krishna gives there about the soul. So these are important to understand But where we're going wrong, we're trying to make the body eternal. It's not going to work. You can't. See, like I said, the nature of the soul is that we are eternal, that we're happy. But that's not the nature of the body or matter. The nature of matter is the opposite to the nature of the soul. the nature of the soul is eternal. The nature of matter is it's temporary. You can't change that. It's like you can't change the soul into temporary. You can't. It's eternally fixed like that. Matter, you can't change matter. You can't turn matter into becoming eternal. You can't make matter conscious. You can't make matter happy. You know, the nature of matter is it's temporary, it's full of ignorance, no consciousness, and it's full of suffering. So it is natural that we're trying to be happy. It is natural that we're trying to be eternal, but where we're trying to have that experience is incorrect. You know, the real happiness and the real eternal life is in the spiritual world. So, and the example given is like, you're looking for water in a desert. No, that's the wrong place to look for water. You know, but does that mean water doesn't exist? Because there's no water in the desert, does that mean water doesn't exist? No, it does exist, but not in the desert. You know, it exists other places. You know, so the same thing. We're looking for happiness in the material world, but it's not there. You know, but happiness is there, but it's in the spiritual world. However, and this is something Josh was having a hard time with this one, that you know, it seems like a bit of a pessimistic philosophy, saying there's no happiness in the material world. You know, come on, you Hare Krishnas are too negative and everything. There are some nice things in the material world and everything. Yeah, so that is there. I mean, it's Krishna's energy, and we're going to be coming to that soon in the 7th chapter, where he says, I am the taste of water, I am the light of the sun and the moon, you know, of mountains, I am the Himalayas, and all these kind of things like that. So if we see the material world in terms of Krishna consciousness, then that will generate a spiritual happiness. That will generate a spiritual happiness. So for a devotee is happy in the spiritual world, of course, and we're also happy in the material world. So that's as soon as we become Krishna conscious. In the material world, the real happiness starts from there. But that happiness is generated from the Krishna consciousness. I mean, of course, but you could say, but materialistic people, they also have happiness. You know, they are looking out at the ocean and having a swim and everything like that. And they're, you know, meeting a nice partner and enjoying their senses and having a good meal and everything like that, and having some organic meal or something like that, and very tasty food or whatever like that. But that's not real happiness, because why?
It's
Why?
temporary.
Yeah, it's temporary, and the very fact that you're getting a few drops of happiness makes it worse. Because just like, imagine you're in a desert and someone puts a drop of water on your tongue.
Yeah.
You're so thirsty, oh my God, you know, but someone just puts a drop of water on your tongue. How's that going to make you feel? Is it going to make you better or worse or the same?
Oh, you want more. You want to
It makes you want more. So it just makes you more dissatisfied. It makes you more dissatisfied and want it more. So it increases the desire for more happiness. And this is very bad point, that, well, a good point, but a bad thing, that it gives us a false hope that I can find the true happiness in the material world. And that is a disaster. That is what makes us keep on going. We don't give up. That, oh, I haven't managed to become eternal yet, but just around the corner, maybe, could be. You know, I'm not a millionaire yet, but maybe if I just do this or whatever. You know, I'm not perfectly happy right now, but I can if I just try harder, and, you know, like that. So that little bit of happiness, it deludes us into thinking that maybe it's possible. Maybe no one else succeeded, but maybe I can, at living here permanently and becoming happily ever after, like it says in the movies, right? And they walked away into the sunset and they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
Maybe no one else has done it, but I think I can because I experienced 5 minutes of happiness yesterday. So maybe I can do it, so it's like that. So material happiness actually is one of the things that locks us into the material world, that keeps us here. So which keeping us where? Keeping us in birth, old age, disease, and death. So that in that way, that little bits of sense gratification, through our tongue and genitals and so forth, a little bit of happiness that we seem to get, is actually the cause of our suffering.
Mm.
So it's not real happiness, but it's like just little gaps between suffering, according to the Vedas. It's called Chapala Sukha.
Mm.
If you in Vedic term, Sanskrit, it's called Chapala Sukha. Sukha means happiness and Chapala means flickering. But I put up your hand if you're going to be happy with that, just a momentary happiness, with either side of it is suffering, so. And now people say, well, that's very pessimistic, but that's just the reality. But actually, Krishna consciousness is very positive, because if we follow this process of Krishna consciousness, this can give us anandam bodhivardhanam pradipadam puranamritasvadanam savatmasna param param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. It's an ocean of happiness which is ever increasing. Ananda means bliss, which bliss is more than sukha. Ananda means bliss, and that's far more. Like when Prabhupada's singing Jai Radha Madhava and the tears come out sideways, that's bliss. That's not happiness. So, and Vardhanam means ever increasing. It just gets more and more bliss, more increasing bliss, more and more and more. Sarvatmasna Param means like your whole soul is like swimming in that ocean of bliss. We're bathing in that bliss. And how is that bliss being accessed? It's through this process of Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, through coming together and chanting the Lord's names. So then when we chant our japa, our kirtan, we come together and we chant, or we're chanting by ourselves, whatever, with family, like that, then we can connect with that ocean of bliss, And of course, in the beginning, we're not expert enough and following the process purely enough to maybe experiencing that ocean of bliss all the time. But we may get some snippets of it. And even a drop of that bliss is so relishable, so satisfying. And there's a difference between a drop of happiness in the material world and a drop of spiritual bliss. Because the drop of spiritual bliss is leading us to the real bliss, the eternal bliss. Whereas the drop of material happiness is just sucking us in to a life of suffering more and more. So you might say, well, you're only getting a little bit of happiness from Krishna consciousness, but the difference is it's just going to get better and better and better and better. Whereas materially, what's the happiness? Which way is the graph going to go? The material happiness graph is going to start up here and going to go, because the closer you get to old age, disease, and death, right, it gets worse. Like when you're young, that's the best time for material happiness. You're strong, all your senses are working well, your digestion is good, your sex drive is good, everything's good. You're looking good and everything like that. But as the body gets older, all those things go downhill. So materially, it's all downhill. But spiritually, it starts off as slowly, you know, because we're conditioned to material enjoyment, we're attached to it, we don't have any taste for Krishna consciousness because of we've been in Maya for so long and like that. So it's a slow start, you know, but slowly, the more you go, so it goes the other way. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it says there, the happiness and the mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So happiness and mode of goodness is like poison in the beginning and like nectar at the end. And happiness in the mode of passion is like nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. And happiness in the mode of ignorance is poison in the beginning and poison in the end.
Oh no.
Oh,
It's like the life of a drunkard, mode of ignorance, right? It's just misery all the time. It was never anything good, you know. And he's peeing his pants, falling in the gutter, and he's thinking he's happy, but the person outside, sober person, can see is so miserable life. What a horrible life, like that. So it's just suffering all the time. But in the spiritual life, yeah, it can be like, what does it mean, poison in the beginning? Because see, we're so materially conditioned, and we're just so addicted to sense gratification. So of course in the spiritual path, you're supposed to give that up, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, eat, drink and be merry, all those things we liked before, you know, we're supposed to give those things up. So that can be like a kind of poisonous, you know, idea for the conditioned soul. And like one of Prabhupada's godbrothers who went to England before Prabhupada went to America, tried to spread Krishna consciousness under the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was preaching to some Lord Zetland. And Lord Zetland said, can you make me a Brahmana? The devotee said, sure, no problem. He said, well, so what do I have to do? He said, you just have to stop meat eating, stop intoxication, stop illicit sex, stop gambling, I'll make you a Brahmana. And what did he say? He said, that's impossible. That's impossible. You know, so for most people, you know, it's very difficult. You know, we're very addicted to sense gratification. But it's not that there's anything wrong with the process. The process is wonderful, but there's something wrong with us. So the example is given in the Nectar of Instruction, called the Shikshamrita. It's a little small book by Rupa Goswami. Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Siddhapta Vidya Patau Patapta Rasanasya Narochikanu. Like that, the verse goes that for one who is afflicted by the jaundice-like disease of ignorance, he cannot taste the sugar candy sweetness of Krishna's holy names and qualities and pastimes. However, if we carefully chant every day, chant and hear about Krishna's names and qualities and pastimes every day, then this disease of ignorance will be cured at the root. So that's indicating what the problem is, that we're diseased. There's nothing wrong with the holy name, nothing wrong with the Bhagavad Gita or anything like that. But it's something wrong with us, that we've got a jaundice-like disease of ignorance. Why is the example of jaundice given? Because sugar is very nice. Sugar is very nice, but if you have jaundice, how does sugar taste? Does it taste very nice? It tastes bitter. Actually, for one who has jaundice, sugar tastes bitter. Tastes bitter. It's not that the sugar is bitter, but our taste buds are diseased, so it tastes bitter because it's the disease of the liver. So the liver is messed up, so you can't process it, and like that, it sort of tastes bitter. So what's that?
I never knew that. That's the first time
Yeah, I mean, I fortunately, I've never, fingers crossed, never had jaundice, but I'm just taking this from the scriptures. I don't know if any of the other ones. Narendra, have you ever had jaundice?
Oh no.
You turn yellow.
Usually it's babies, like newborn babies, they get jaundice, but that's it. You can't talk to a baby.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, blue light, they are put under blue light or something.
Yeah.
So, but that was a traditional cure,
Huh.
was to take sugar candy. So, but when you have jaundice, it tastes terrible, but that's the cure. So that's the point, is that in the very beginning, like, we might not like chanting at all. Oh, I don't like this chanting. You know, I even hate chanting. But that is the cure. And if we just keep chanting, then eventually it's going to be like nectar. Eventually, this whole process is going to become like nectar. So that's in the mode of goodness. It says it's like poison in the beginning and like nectar in the end. But so I'd rather do it that way than nectar in the beginning and poison in the end, you know, because, and that's material life, you know, it just ends with death, and then you have to take another body, and you've got no control over what body you're going to get. You can't choose, oh, I want to take birth as a cat in Australia or something like that, or as a demigod or something like that. You know, no, or as a man or as a woman. No, you're just going to be forced in any womb according to your past karma. Like one astrologer did the astrology chart for Nehru. You know, big politician, Nehru, right? Big politician, born in India, Brahmin family. I think Saraswat Brahmin or some high Brahmin class, you know, born in, you know, Brahmin family in India. Very good birth. But you know where the astrologer said he took birth? And in what species? A dog in Scandinavia. Scandinavia means freezing cold. Means like Norway, like that, Sweden, Finland, these are Scandinavian countries. So he said he took birth as a dog in Scandinavia. You know, dog birth is very low birth. They're very tamasic. I know from our dog, you know, he just eats any garbage, any rotten thing. Just very, very horrible birth. And of course, we can use that in Krishna's service, so we do that. He's Krishna's security guard. So, yeah, but we're trying to find the happiness in the material world. But yeah, that's a foolish hope. So the little bits of happiness that we experience actually delude us further. That's part of the illusion. You know, that giving us that hope that maybe we can find the happiness. I haven't found it yet, but maybe I can get it. Maybe I can get it. Maybe I can get it. So, yeah, no doubt. I mean, Josh's point was that, you know, there's so much beauty in nature and everything like that, and there is good in people, and so we don't dispute that. But if you just see those things in terms of your sense enjoyment, then that is just locking you into the material world. That's not good, you know. Okay, you know, I mean, see, that's explained. Why is a particular person experiencing happiness, right? That is a result of what? Sattva-guna, mode of goodness. So what is the mode of goodness? Means you have knowledge. So you have knowledge, and as a result of that knowledge, you're going to be happiness. That's in the 16th chapter. This explains the symptoms of the different modes. So that's 16, text number 8. Tatra sattvam nirmala prakasha kamanamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. So the mode of goodness is symptomized by knowledge and happiness, and you're bound by that feeling of happiness. That is what they don't realize. It's that feeling of happiness, that's what's binding you. And because you have more knowledge than the common person, you know how to, you know, keep yourself away from sinful activities. You know, so by avoiding, because the suffering is caused by sinful activities, like the common person, he doesn't have any knowledge, and is engaged in sinful activities. And what does he experience? Suffering. But the person in knowledge, he knows what to avoid. Okay, I'm not going to have, meat. I'm not going to have illicit sex. I'm not going to have intoxication. I'm not going to gamble, like that. I'm going to read books and everything, do yoga and meditation, everything like that. So he lives in the mode of goodness. And as a result of the living in the mode of goodness, because you're not getting sinful reactions so much, because of the knowledge you have, then you feel happiness. You're enjoying at the beach and seeing the meadow of flowers, and you eat nice vegetarian food and everything's nice and everything like that, and you have a nice partner and everything like that, and they're also in the mode of goodness and like that. And the kids are also born in the mode of goodness, so it's all mode of goodness, and it doesn't seem like it's too bad. It seems pretty good, but see, that is the illusion. Also is affecting those people in the mode of goodness, that keeps them in the material world. You think, oh, being in the material world's okay, it's not that bad. But that very idea where you're thinking it's not so bad, it's pretty good, is actually bondage. That's badnati. That means they're bound to the material world. How? By that feeling of happiness.
But how to behave then? I mean, I mean, my family, my household, my whatever, and there is some enjoyment there. I mean, with everybody, everything happening properly and everyone, But yeah, I mean, so how are we supposed to? And we're following the 4 regulative principles. I mean, I am the 4 regulative principles and things like this. But how? I mean, am I supposed to be morose and depressed, or what? How? I mean, because I am happy and I'm enjoying. Yes, my kids are doing well. My husband is well. How to.
So the secret is not that we have to avoid happiness.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's our nature to be happy. But we have to connect our happiness with Krishna, that's all, with God. You want a God-centered happiness, not godless happiness. That's the problem. Not happiness minus God, but, happiness plus God. You know what I'm saying? Like yoga. Yoga means plus, right?
Yeah.
So karma yoga means your activities, karma, plus God. Jnana yoga means your knowledge plus God. Bhakti yoga means you have a loving propensity, is to serve, to love, plus God, with God, like that. Astanga yoga, you do all your bodily activities, but connected to God. So that is the thing, but you're trying to find happiness but minus God. That's very dangerous. That's what's going to lock us in, like that, because that feeling of happiness is deluding us to not wanting to go to the spiritual world, to not want to connect with God, and that we want to stay here, but we can't stay here, not in this particular body. And like I said, what kind of body are you going to get in the next term? We don't know. So that's very dangerous life. Just trying to, even if someone manages to get to the mode of goodness, but just trying to stay in that mode is not possible. See, that's one thing also with the modes. They're always changing. You can't possibly get a constant mode of goodness, or constant passion, or constant ignorance. There's always rivalry and changes going on. One day is goodness, another day is passion. One in the morning is goodness, and afternoon is passion. It's always changing. So it's just very risky to try to do that. So yeah, just going along, life's good, it's happy, everything like that, but the problem is not wanting the happiness, but the problem is having it in a godless way. That's all, because that's, like I said, binding us. We want to learn to find our happiness, with God, with Krishna. Like when you get a flower, just think that Krishna has put the smell in the flower. Don't just sniff it and think, that's good for my nose, good for me, or you stuff food in your mouth, oh, that's good for my tongue, that tastes good, whatever. But think, like Prabhupada said, that why does this taste so good?
Because
Krishna must have liked it. Why does this shark, this green leaves, taste so delicious? Krishna must have liked it. He's put his nectar, the nectar from Krishna's lips. The nectar from Krishna's lips is on this vegetable. That's why it tastes so good. And if you're enjoying eating in that Krishna conscious way, that's going to liberate you. It's not going to bind you. But if you're just enjoying eating like that, you might take birth as a pig, isn't it? Or a dog or a pig. And then what happiness is that? That's very unfortunate. I mean, how did Prabhupada look at people that were experiencing that material happiness? We can give you a couple examples just to give you an idea. That one time Prabhupada saw some people surfing.
Oh.
And he said he'd never seen that in India. There's no people surfing 50 years ago. So now there will be, but he said that Neelakanta Priya is putting some nice stuff in. We'll read that and we'll read that. So he said, what's that? And they said, surfing, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, not surfing, suffering. Suffering. And there's like tears in his eyes. And another time, Prabhupada saw someone playing golf, and he'd never seen that before. He said, what's that? And they said, oh, that's golf. And he said, well, what are they doing? What's the purpose of that? He said, oh, their purpose is to hit a white ball into a hole. And Prabhupada was like, tragic, waste of human life just to hit a white ball in a hole. And like, again, like crying. So he's feeling so unhappy with their happiness. Why? Because he's seeing that ultimately they're going to be defeated by the material nature. That surfer probably is going to take birth as a fish. And the material nature says, oh, he likes being in the water. Okay, we'll give him the body suitable for being in the water. You don't need a wetsuit and a board and everything. You're just going to be a dolphin like that, no worries, Or, hitting a ball in a hole, and maybe it'll take birth as a mouse or something like that in the hole, or a snake or a mouse in the hole or something like that. And so he's saying with that spiritual vision, this is like tragic, that material happiness. So, do you know what I'm saying? So it's not that we're wanting to be negative, that we're against the positive things. No, we do want the positive, but the positive is only, truly positive in a relationship with God. And like I said, we're not even just waiting to be happy when we go back to the spiritual world. No, we can be happy now. But now, like it's raining and I'm thinking, thank you, Krishna, for this rain, thank you, Krishna. And if it's a sunny day, I'll be saying the same thing, thank you, Krishna. If something good happens for my body, I'll say thank you, Krishna. If something bad happens to my body, I'll say thank you, Krishna. So we're trying to connect everything. We've come to this new place, thank you, Krishna. If Krishna kicks us out of here and sends us to some other place, thank you, Krishna. So just always trying to see everything that happens in our life in relation with him, and finding happiness in that consciousness. That is the main thing. But trying to find happiness without God, that's the happiness of an asura, of a demon. And Prabhupada's going to start talking about Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu. Who is expert in manipulating the material world, like that. And once again, he was born in a Brahmin one I'm thinking. Oh, I was thinking about Ravana. Now, Ravana was also, he was born in a Brahmin family. Actually, yeah, I mean, Hiranyakashipu, his father was Kashyap Muni, was a great sage. And Aditi, mother, demigoddess, so very good parents, have a lot of knowledge, everything like that. Ravana also born in a Paka Brahmin family, but just misused that knowledge and used it to try to manipulate, control, exploit the material world. And where do they end up? Where did they end up? Hiranyakashipu ended up with his guts being ripped out by the Lord, and Ravana ended up with Ram's arrow into his heart. So actually very fortunate, both of them. They had to die, of course, but they were killed by the Lord. So very fortunate. But death has came. Both of them wanted to be immortal. Both Hiranyakashipu, got blessings from Lord Brahma with the idea of becoming immortal. Ravana also was trying to build a staircase to go to the Swarga. He wanted to live a longer life there. He was building a physical structure to go from the earth to the heavens, because he didn't want to follow the Vedic process, which is you got to perform yagya for the particular deva. If you do the yagya for the deva, then you'll take birth in that particular deva's place. If you do Indra yagya, you'll go to Indraloka. If you do Chandra yagya, you go to the moon. If you do Surya yagya, you go to the sun. So that's the recommended process. But he doesn't want to, follow the regular process. He's like pretending like he's God. He's just going to force his way in there like that. But where did he end up? Not a very good situation. So at this point, does anyone like to say anything?
But Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, the fact that they got, killed by Ram and Krishna, that they got liberated, did they? I don't know. So it was very good, no?
Yeah, very good. What are you going to try to? You're going to try to get that same thing? You're going to have to do some pretty bad stuff, Deepa, to make Krishna come to the material world to get rid of you. You're going to have to do some heavy-duty bad stuff.
No.
Not easy as well. I mean, that's not.
It's a lot easier to chant Hare Krishna than try to be so bad that God's going to come to kill you, take you out. So it's a lot easier. Just I'd recommend you just follow the path of chanting Hare Krishna. Actually, there's a whole pastime behind that. They were actually two doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, in terms of Hiranyakashipu, and his brother Hiranyaksha. They were Jai and Vijay, and they were cursed by the four Kumaras to become demons. So that's a whole pastime there. So it's a special Leela there. Yeah. But we're not in that category. I don't think we were like Jai and Vijay and all that. We're just tiny little jivas here. Because in the spiritual world, Krishna doesn't have anyone to have a play fight with, because they're all his devotees, right? So Krishna wants to have a play fight. Where can he experience that? He has to come to the material world. But then who is good enough to fight with Krishna? So he has to bring his own devotees to fight with. You see? Because only his own devotees are powerful and strong like him. So, and he can't fight in the spiritual. No one would fight with him in the spiritual world because they all love him too much. So he made that whole arrangement to bring two devotees from the spiritual to the material world, have a good fight with them. And Krishna was enjoying that. That's another kind of rasa called Rudra rasa. But when Krishna has that fighting angry rasa, that's a source of pleasure. But if we try to imitate God, okay, I'm going to have that fighting rasa, but we end up suffering. That's not pleasure. Like whoever I fight with, probably they will suffer, and I will also suffer, and we all suffer like that. But when Krishna fights, he is enjoying, and whoever he fights with, they also enjoy, and they get liberated like that. So like on the Battle of Kurukshetra, right? That's all about fighting, right? So, but it said all those soldiers that died in front of Krishna, they all got liberated. So some people say, oh, that's so terrible. How can Krishna tell Arjuna to kill all those soldiers? That's like terrible. How can Krishna's, that's not moral like that to do that. That's terrible. No, but it's not. You know, they all got liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Exactly what this verse is saying, you know, transcended the cycle of birth and death. You know, so you have to see what is the result. Phalena Parichate. You have to see, you know, what is the result, you know. Is it bringing us to the point of eternal life, eternal happiness? That's the thing, you know. Okay, you're seeing the whole world as a nice place and it's all good and she'll be right. But what's the result of that? You have to come back again. That's terrible. That's terrible. You have to come back again. You know, because the Lord is in our heart. He sees that, oh, you still think you can be happy without me. You still think you can be happy in the material world without me. Okay, come back. What body do you want? You know, according to your karma. Like that and that's a disaster. So that is actually the problem with the mode of goodness. That's the problem with the mode of goodness. You have knowledge to be able to manipulate the material energy to some degree and avoid, you know, the sinful things and just do pious things. You know, I'm going to go to church and do some religious stuff and give in charity and do a few sacrifices and everything like that. And then, you know, all the devas are going to be happy with me and everything like that. Everything's going to go nicely. My business will be successful. I'll give a donation. One man, for example, he said, that he heard his business friend told him, if you give a donation to Balaji, you know, Balaji Venkateshwar in South India, in Tirupati, then your business will do really well. So he went there and he gave a donation, and sure enough, within a few months, his business like doubled and tripled and everything like that. But see, that's where you have to be careful, because then we get deluded that we think we can control the material energy and we can be happy here and everything like that. Does that make sense?
But if they did it in a different in the right sort of consciousness, would that make a difference?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. When we went to Balaji also, and we also gave a donation. But we're not giving the donation thinking that we're going to get some sense gratification in return. But we're giving the donation because, well, all Lakshmi belongs to Narayan, so we've got to give it back to Narayan. You know, it belongs to him, so we give it to him. So that's just as a service. That we're just doing it as a service. We're not expecting a return. We're not expecting a return from that.
But even the enjoying of whatever, as was in the whole discussion, I caught a little bit of it here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. To do it in the if it was done, if it was, you know, the enjoyment was with awareness, with consciousness of, you know, that it's all Krishna's beauty and Krishna's whatever, then that would be okay.
That's not okay. That's right. That's perfect. That is the real happiness. That is the real happiness. You know, thank you, Krishna, for giving me such a nice husband. Thank you, Krishna, for giving me these nice children. Thank you for giving me this opportunity for service, to serve your devotee in the form of a husband, to serve your devotee in the form of a wife, to serve your devotee in the form of children, to serve your devotees in the form of parents, to serve in your house, this temple, this house, which is your temple. You know, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for giving this opportunity to get this money, you know, to use in your service. You know, and I'm going to use it in your service and everything to maintain your house, maintain your temple. So that's all it is. We're definitely not against happiness. We're saying that's our nature, Anandamaya Vyasat. That's our nature. But you know, and what's the consciousness that you're in, you know, to get that happiness? You know? Is it with Krishna? Excellent. That's the real happiness. Or is it without Krishna? That's a disaster. That's you've signed your contract for another term, with Maya in the material world. You've sold your soul to the devil if you're doing that, so it's a thing. And in the beginning, it won't be all Krishna-centered, and that's expected. But we're just making baby steps. Like I said, poison in the beginning, nectar in the end. So you just add a little bit. In the beginning, you might just remember Krishna a bit when you're chanting and not much of the rest of the day. But you just slowly add more. I'm 1% Krishna conscious, then 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. So slowly try to increase it more and more like that. And Krishna's not going to beat us up for not being, 100% Krishna conscious in the beginning. He's going to be pleased. It said, even if someone chants Krishna's name once, immediately his attention is attracted to that person, and he tries to help that soul. Even if they once chant his name, or once take prasadam, once, come in contact with Bhagavad Gita, it's all good, whatever you do in Krishna conscious. So even if all your interactions with your family aren't fully Krishna conscious, don't beat yourself up, because of that or anything. You just slowly try to improve. Okay, I wasn't very Krishna conscious yesterday. I'm going to try to be a bit more today. I made a mistake. Then I'll try to improve. So you reflect on, okay, well, how did I deal with that? Okay, I didn't deal with it very well. Okay, I'm going to try and improve now. So it's like that. But the point is, we got to have a goal. Our goal is to find happiness with Krishna. Don't make your goal to find happiness without Krishna, because that's the happiness of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu. And believe me, and it doesn't work. So we want to find like the happiness of Prahlad, or the happiness of Arjuna, or the happiness of Hanuman. That their happiness is in their relationship with the Lord. And we see the result is just so much different. The happiness of Hanuman versus the happiness of Ravana. There's no comparison. Ravana was never truly happy, even though he had so much material facilities, but he was always dissatisfied. He was always lamenting. Even though he had so many beautiful wives, but he still wasn't happy. Why? Because then he even wanted Sita. I don't have Sita. I want Sita. He had this, what is it, Manodar or something, beautiful wife. She's one of the most famous chaste wives in the universe. Ravana's prime wife, like that. Manodari or something. I can't remember. Mano something. Very.
I think, even Ravana, you're giving example. If you just look at around us, if you give a toy to a kid, new toy, he will play with it. After some time, he'll throw it. He want a new toy. That's the basic psychology we have. What we have, we don't value it. We go for something, we don't have it. It's always there.
Yeah.
You have small house, you want big house now. You have a small car, you want a big car. That's the thing which drives it, right? Once you have something, it's of no value. You will look for something. That's material mentality. Whatever you say. That's the nature. That's how we have been created. So that's why we keep going, never stops. That's it. Yeah.
But the happiness of Krishna consciousness is so satisfying that then you don't want anything more externally. If you live in a simple house, you're happy. If you live in a fancy house, you're happy. If you have a basic car, you're happy. If you have a fancy car, you're happy. And you're not going to be mad after achieving the fancy this and that. But if it comes to you, if it comes automatically, then without too much endeavor, then you accept that. Like Sudama, perfect one, Sudama Vipra, right? He lived in a shack with holes in the roof, and he had holes in his clothes, and he had very little food, and he was all skin and bones. And then after he came back from seeing Krishna, he lived in a palace. Now the real question is, did Sudama Vipra change at all before he had the fancy house or after he had the fancy house? Was he any different living in a shack than what he was living in the fancy house? Was it his consciousness changed at all by that?
I think so.
No. He loved Krishna in the shack and he loved Krishna in the palace. And when he got the palace, what was he thinking? Oh, I got this by my endeavor, by my effort. No, he said, like, thank you, Krishna. I don't deserve this. You're so kind, Krishna. I don't deserve this, but you are so merciful. You know, I'm going to treat this place as your palace, you know, and I'm your servant, like that. So it didn't affect him at all. And he wasn't depending on having a palace or anything like that. And he could have gone back to live in a shack, no problem at all. If Krishna kicked him out of the palace, you know, he would have been happy to go back in the shack, you know. So
when you're happy, that's because of Krishna. When you're suffering, that is also from Krishna. And I think everything is good. So you have to be, as I think Neelkant Priya Mataji said, you have to be indifferent. You know, you have to have knowledge that, okay, I'm happy today. It's not going to last. Tomorrow it's going to be a problem, because that happiness is still material. Even though you're saying you're getting from Krishna, still material. It'll end sometime and something. So the trick is to be indifferent. You know, you should be happy. You know, it's coming from Krishna. All is good.
Yeah. Neelkanta Priya, she said that a little while ago, indifferent. So that's the way of the devotee. I mean, one time I was distributing books, and it was in the nighttime, early nighttime, and I knocked on one door, Indian family's house. Oh, and they treated me like a king with the red carpet and sat me down on their best chair and brought me drinks, and then made some food and everything, showed me their altar room, all their puja stuff, and then bought a whole stack of books. And it was so wonderful experience. You know, I was feeling so happy like that. And then I left them and I went to the next house. Talk about dualities. The next house, it didn't have a fence around it, so I'm always thinking about there might be some dog. So if there's a fence, you know, then I'm thinking about that. But this place had no fence, so I thought, oh, no worries about a dog. So I just boldly went up to the front door. It was all dark, and then as I was about to knock on the door, I had this feeling, there's someone else here. There's someone else here, and I could just make out that there was a dog sleeping in the doorstep. I was standing, you know, right in front of this dog, you know, who was asleep. And I saw the dog's head move, and then the eyes opened because it had been sleeping. And, you know, when someone's been asleep and they wake up, they can't focus straight away. It takes a few moments. And time went in slow motion at that time. It seemed like a long time, but actually it was just like, you know, didn't happen long. And then as soon as I saw the dog waking up, do you know what I did?
You bolted.
I bolted. And then the dog, you know, realized there's an intruder. There's someone here. So it bolted too in my direction. So it jumped and landed on my arm. It put its mouth on my arm. And then, because luckily it was the winter time, I had a massive jacket on, so it couldn't get the teeth into my arm, so it let go. But then it jumped onto my leg, and that was not so lucky because I had a dhoti, so it sunk into my leg. But at that point, it bit my leg. It came to the end of its lead, because that's why there was no fence, because it was on like a 10-meter long, you know, lead. So it came to the end of that, tong, and I was going that way, and it couldn't go any further, so it had to let go of my leg, you know. So, but then I had a bleeding leg.
Oh no!
And so the point was just you got to learn to be indifferent, because sometimes you'll be very happy, like with the Indian family, and sometimes it's going to be a lot of suffering, like with the dog, you know. So, but you got to learn to be very neutral. And just see Krishna and everything, you know. Thank you, Krishna, for arranging me to meet these people and distribute books and everything. And thank you, Krishna, also for this wake-up call, showing me how temporary this material world is, that death can come at any time. You know, disease and death and all these things can come at any time. Actually, when I was bitten, I was walking down the road and I felt like I was outside of the body and watching the body. So talk about indifferent. That's how I felt. Krishna arranged that I was like very detached from the situation. And my friend, he wasn't supposed to meet me for 1 hour. We had arranged a pickup time. And so I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do? You know, like I'm bleeding like that for 1 hour is not good. So he came within 5 minutes. And
Wow.
and as he took me to the hospital, I asked him, why did you come? You know, you weren't supposed to come for another hour. He said that a voice within me said, Abai is in trouble, go find Abai, go and find Abai. He's in trouble. So that increased my faith in the super soul. Not only it taught me I had to get more serious about my spiritual practice because death can take place at any time, but also I had more faith that, you know, Krishna, he's within all of our hearts, and he can communicate, you know, communications going on and everything like that, and he helped me at that time, which would have been very difficult. But then you could say, but why you had to go through that, you know? But like I said, it helped me become more serious. That otherwise you sort of take it easy, you know, like that. But if we realize death can come at any time, then we become more serious. So that also I see as mercy, that I went through that. That was mercy, like that. So it's all mercy. We have to learn to be indifferent like that. That the good times are mercy, the bad times, everything like that. And that way we're always going to be happy. We're always going to be happy.
I think it's time.
Anyway,
you've been
time's
for you.
Over.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Take care, everyone. All the best.
You too.